You'd think playing video games on the internet to make videos with would be something nice and safe and easy. Well, I actually hurt myself playing Konamic Sports in Seoul. Having to mash those buttons for a full hour really put a strain on my wrist. And I had to use a standard controller with it. The events in this one are a lot more complicated than the ones in Hypersport and Hyper Olympic. So the Hyper Shot wasn't used. I tried using a rapid-fire controller, but it disables the expansion port. So I had to mash like crazy on the standard controller, and I still never won any of the events that required mashing. In fact, I'd say that all of the events here have terrible controls, and they're poorly defined. I have to point out the timing of this release. Despite what some internet sites will tell you, it was released on September 16th, 1988. The Seoul Summer Olympics started on September 17th, 1988. Konami was striking while the iron was hot with this game. There are 15 events in Konamic Sport in Seoul. 2 of them are only accessible if you do well in the Olympic mode, so we won't be seeing them at all. Olympic mode lets you represent a country as you take part in a series of events. There's 3 events per day, but you have to qualify in order to continue to the next day. One of the events, arm wrestling, is solely a 2-player versus game. In that event, players just compete to see who mashes the button faster. The remaining 12 events can all be accessed from training mode. There, if you qualify an event, it automatically loads up the next one. And you keep doing this until you fail to qualify. Okay, let's walk through these events. Fencing is the first of our 2 one-on-one fighting events. Pressing A swings the foil, while holding B puts you into a defensive posture. Where you're aiming at on your opponent depends on what direction you're pressing on the pad. You have to score 5 hits on them to win the match. This one's actually pretty easy. You can button mash your way to victory for it. Event 2 is swimming, and here's where the interface problems really start. Hitting the A button does a stroke, and hitting the B button takes a breath. And if you press down and hit A when you jump off the block, you do a butterfly stroke. It's faster, but it takes more breath. You basically have to alternate mashing A to build up speed, and then mashing B to recover oxygen. All you can do on this one is mash. There's no real strategy here that will help you. And in a pattern we're going to see a lot of, if you don't mash incredibly fast, you have absolutely no chance. The triple jump is similar to the event from Hypersports. Mash the A button as fast as you can to build up speed, and then press and hold the B button to jump. The longer you hold down B, the greater your launch angle. And that launch angle builds up really fast in this game. You have to hit B again when you touch the ground, but if you hit B before you touch the ground, it's a foul. So the timing on this is incredibly tight. In the high dive, you have to press A to select how you're going to jump off the board, then press B to jump off, then you press A or B and a direction on the control pad as you're heading down to do a trick, and finally you press up or down to straighten out as you enter the water. Then you're given a subjective ranking of how well you did. I never got the timing to straighten out down. Clay pigeon shooting is probably the easiest of the events. Press B to launch the pigeon, press A to fire the gun. You have to move the crosshair yourself for this one. The later rounds just change what angle the clay pigeons are launched at. In the hammer throw, you have to spin the pad as fast as you can, then press and hold A to launch it while you're flashing. How long you hold A determines the angle. If you don't throw it, eventually you'll fall over and get a foul, which means that you can't build up power indefinitely. Taekwondo is similar to a traditional fighting game. The A button kicks, the B button punches, and the direction on the pad determines what move you do. When people get knocked down, they have 10 seconds to get up, and as far as I can tell, mashing the button doesn't affect that. Sometimes you'll just get knocked down and lose for no good reason. In the pole vault, you mash the A button as hard as you can, and when the end of the pole is over the anchor point, you press B. Press B again at the top to launch yourself over the bar. For this one, you can pick how high of jump you're going to go for. But why would you pick something below the qualifying height? In canoeing, pressing A rows forward, B rows backwards, and you can turn your canoe left and right. You have to pass through the gates in number order. You'll find that gate 4 comes before gate 3. And there are some gates where you have to do something special. If there's an R on the sign, you have to go through it backwards. And if there's a slash on the sign, you have to go around the gate and go through it from the other side. Failing to do that will get you a penalty, and that's added to your time at the end. This one wound up being my favorite event because the controls actually made sense. I wouldn't have minded a few more complicated courses for this one. In archery, you press and hold A, and then you can move the D-pad to aim the bow. The arrow is affected by distance and wind, so you'll have to make a new adjustment with every shot. Once you've got your aim locked in, mash the B button as hard as you can to build up power, then hit A to shoot. You get 3 shots at every range, and your total score determines if you qualify. The hurdles are straightforward. You mash the A button as hard as you can, and then press B when you reach a hurdle. For the horizontal bars, you hit the A button to jump up, then mash the A button a lot to build up speed. What trick you can do changes depending on your position and speed, and you press B to do each trick. When the sign changes to finish, you press B to jump off. The other 2 events are pistol shooting and hang gliding, though I didn't get to see those. I did not have any fun with Konamic Sports in Seoul. Even if it wasn't hurting me, the timing for the controls wasn't clear in some events like swimming, and it requires some incredibly intense button mashing if you're going to have any chance. There are some good bits in it. Canoeing and archery are actually pretty fun events. The rest are just not that much fun. I can honestly say I prefer the original Hyper Sport and Hyper Olympic. Although Hyper Olympic also required some crazy mashing from people, it didn't hurt me like this one did.